This may be a little controversial, this video. Have Brits caused this problem in Spain, or are they just moaning that they can no longer afford property here in Spain? I've seen a lot of comments on the channel, and I'm going to talk about property prices and can you still find cheap property in Spain? Yes, you can, and no, you can't. So there's the two different sides to the story here. So make sure you stick around to the end of this video and then give me your comments on the end about what you think is wrong with the Spanish property market. And is it just the Spanish property market, or is it the property market in general worldwide? So a lot of people moved to Spain 20 years ago. I deal with a lot of people who have been here a long time. And regardless of fake video headlines out there about why people are fleeing Spain, they're not in vast numbers. The numbers have been quite stable for years. If anything, there's a lack of people moving to Spain in the way that they did due to that word that we're not, Brexit. It's obvious. It's harder for people from the UK to move to Spain. So with that being said, people are complaining that a place in the sun and programs like that, let's face it, that the property market has been helped by in Spain, but also that the people in the UK have fulfilled their dreams in buying a holiday home. Now, I know people that have bought homes here in Spain for £40,000. £40,000 for a home in Spain. It's fantastic. 3-bedroom home. People are complaining that you can't get that value for money anymore. But it's in holiday resorts. It is in holiday resorts. But it's like everything else. They bought that house 20 years ago. What could you buy a house for in the UK 20 years ago? You know, and people don't look at that. People are saying, and I was in a video yesterday that when I was down in Los Dulces, the people are getting priced out the market. It's becoming a more expensive. It's a different class of people that are moving in. And I'm going to say something really controversial here. I think that it's not just here in Spain where locals are being priced out the market. It's all around the world. The transfer of money from the poor to the rich taking a massive step back in 2021 and 2020. We all know what happened then. We were all forced into a lockdown. And some of us went, bugger it, let's move to Spain in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic. Yes, and if you've watched the channel since then, you'll know the journey that we've been on. But we've never bought, and people will say, well, why you never bought? Well, to think about, if you buy somewhere and you don't like it, and then you've got to sell up and you've got the taxes to pay in Spain. And also the fact that I'm not a believer, the only people that make money out of property are the banks. And this is true. And the people that own the banks. Because as property prices go up, you're then forced to pay more for your next property. And so who's making out that? You're not making out it because you're not going to see the money. You're not going to take out the 300 grand. If your house is now worth 300 grand and you bought it for 150, you're not going to sell that property and then move into a 50 grand flat, because you can't anymore, because there's no 50 grand flats in and around the area that you want to. So the whole banking system and the whole... my thinking behind it and Karen's is it's the valuation that you pay for a property at any given time, whether it be up here or where it's a property crash, is all consistent to where you are and what you value that property at. That should be the Scottish property market, for instance. This is going in a whole wrong direction, this video, but I'm going to keep rolling with it. We'll get back to the Spanish market. In Scotland, you pay offers over. So you have a property that goes on the market for, say, 150,000, just for instance, and it goes on for 150,000 or offers over, which is crazy, because you could have your deposit all set up and you've right, that's the house I've got. I can get a house at 150. I'm not going to be financially buggered for it. And I can talk from experience, from my daughter's going through this at the current moment, at this point in time in Scotland. And then you go and put a bid in the house, and then somebody bids 40 grand more. The house is only valued at 150. It's crazy. It's absolute bonkers. It's nuts. I can remember going for a house back in 2003. It was an old, lovely Victorian house, sat on its own, on the outskirts of the town that I stay. And at that time, I knew a lot of tradespeople. I worked with a lot of tradespeople due to the industry I was in, and also surveyors. So I found out as a surveyor that had actually done the survey on the property, and asked him what he needed. And he said, to get it to a new condition, a really livable, nice condition, you're looking to spend 50 grand. And that was in 2003. So we knew the value of the property. It was 120 grand. It needed 50 grand spent on it to bring it up to top condition. Remember, it had no double glazing. It was the old original thin glazed windows. Beautiful looking house, but needed a lot of money. It had damp and wet rot and some of the floorboards, and it just needed a new kitchen and all sorts, right? Somebody goes in and offers 200 grand for the property. And it's how can you compete with that? I mean, this guy ran a few successful bars at the time. He had money to throw about, and he wanted the house. He wanted it no matter what. And that's the crazy thing about the Scottish property market. And I know it's not the same in England, but I mean, this is what you're kind of up against. I mean, you now look at Spain, and people from the UK complaining that they cannot afford a property here in Spain due to the fact they're getting too expensive. It's not the fact that they're getting too expensive, it's inflation. But think about how the Spanish feel when people from outside Spain are coming up and buying up all the property in the towns that they stay and live. Even I see it here in one of the towns closest to us, Cottrell. I mean, that's completely changed over the last 20 years. 20 years ago, you would hardly find anybody that could speak English. And so it should be. So it should be. But now, they're teaching English in the schools, and the Spanish know that if they want to get on in life, they're going to have to be able to speak a level of English, because the whole housing market is getting invaded by people that don't speak Spanish but can speak a bit of English. And I think that's devastating personally. So for the Brits that are complaining about not being able to afford a property here in Spain anymore, it's not the fact that you can afford... No, do you know what the issue is? And the real issue is that you can't afford the property that you want in the area that you want. And it's the exact same back in Scotland. My kids can't afford to buy a house where they grew up because they're now too expensive. And even they're seeing through the fake charade that is property prices. People think that they're rich because of property prices, and it's like, well, you're not. I mean, I see it back home. Everybody's driving about in new cars. Everybody's got mortgaged up to the hilt. They're in debt to the world. We don't have any, and I think that's the way that life should get back to. Remember, you used to be able to buy a house back in the UK with about a £5 grand deposit, £2 grand. I'm sure I paid £2 grand deposit on my house back in the day. You can't do that. You can't do that now. You can't do that in Spain. And hence the reasons that people are believing this fake nonsense that it's anti-tourists. And the amount of comments that I see, is especially Twitter, that's one of the worst places for it. And I've got to say TikTok. The amount of people say, oh, well, they don't want tourists, serves them right. It's nothing to do with tourism. Yeah, well, it is to do with tourism. It's about people that are coming in and buy property and make money off the property. It's not a Spanish thing. It's not a Spanish thing at all. So be mindful of what your expectations are when you're thinking about buying a property in Spain. You're not just competing with other Brits now. And that's the big problem. That is the problem, isn't it? Let's get down to the nitty-gritty and let's be completely honest with ourselves. Is that before you could come to the Costas, you could come and buy a property and it would be completely covered with English-speaking people and English bars, and get your English breakfast and get your Sunday roast, and Jesus, couldn't think of anything worse. And I'm sorry for people that like a Sunday roast and an English breakfast. But it is so far off my radar that it is unbelievable. People, I mean, even when my brother come over, thankfully, the first thing that he said to me is, we're not going to any English bars, Spanish bars. He stayed in Tenerife. He knows where you get the value for the money for. He knows where you get the good service. He knows where that you feel, I'm going to say it, and people might disagree with this, but feel appreciated as a customer. When you go into some of these tourist resorts and you go into bars, you're just a number, aren't you? You're just a number. You're just another tourist that's just in there to get, and it's just a quick turnover, in and out. Come on, get in and out. You go into a Spanish bar, a Spanish restaurant, you could sit there for hours. Do you know, you could sit there for hours and take up the atmosphere. And now that more and more people from Northern Europe and Eastern Europe are coming into the Spanish property market because they see it's a cheap, it's a safe country, it's a country that stands up for its people. Well, I shouldn't say that because that will get any Spanish on here going, Sanchez is a total beep. Stay away from Spanish politics, but it is a safe country compared to, I'm going to say it, the United Kingdom, compared to Sweden, compared to Ireland. And they'll say, but it's because so many fucking foreigners are coming in. Go and listen to yourselves. That's what Spain's complaining about. That's why the Spanish are complaining, because too many foreigners are coming into the country. So it's okay for you to complain about foreigners coming into the country, taking your jobs. They're not really taking your jobs because you don't want to go and pick fruit. You don't want to work cleaning toilets. You don't want to work, doing the shittiest jobs in the UK and Ireland. You don't want to do them. So it's always been the case that the Polish came in. Now the Polish have gone back. Now the Polish are making more money in Poland than you can in the UK. It's all about perspective, and it's all about the world is changing before our eyes. And yes, you can still buy cheap property here in Spain. We're looking at an area where you can buy a 3-bedroom townhouse for 120 grand. It's all about where you want to stay, and the dynamics of the costas. Anything on the coast in certain bits where it's Brit dominated have seen vast inflationary prices in property. There's no doubt about it, because you're not just competing with people from Britain anymore, you're competing with people from Germany, Belgium, Holland, Sweden, the Netherlands, Finland, Estonia. You've got the Ukrainians that have come in numbers. You've got the Irish that can still travel freely back and forward who are buying up property. You've got the Ukrainians as well, add into the mix. I think down in Cabo Roy there's something like 104 different nationalities all crammed into that area. And that's the real bugbear with British, and that's the real bugbear with the expats watching their place in the sun and saying, they're not getting the cheap properties anymore. It's because the areas that they want and the areas that they show them, they don't want to go to these little villages in Spain where you could buy something dirt cheap. And that's the issue. They don't want to learn Spanish. That's the issue. And as for people that are allegedly fleeing Spain, I've never seen anyone. Watch out for the video that's coming out Sunday morning. We're going to be talking about how it's the most important year for expats living in Spain. And if you live in Spain, you'll know why. But anyway, thank you for watching the video to the end. I shall see you on the next one. Hasta luego.